Aaron wiped the dust from an old wooden chest in his grandfather's attic. The smell of old paper and earth filled the air. He had come to spend the summer at his grandfather's house in the countryside, hoping for quiet days and a little adventure of his own. He never expected to find anything unusual, yet as he opened the chest, his eyes fell on something extraordinary. Inside lay a bundle of old papers tied with a faded red ribbon. Aaron untied it carefully among the letters and sketches. He found a map. The edges were torn and yellowed, but the lines and symbols were clear enough to draw his attention. He studied the map closely. It showed a dense jungle with winding rivers and strange markings. At the center, a small symbol marked a place labeled the Forgotten King's Ruins. Aaron's heart began to beat faster. The words seemed to call him, whispering stories of a kingdom long lost to time. He ran down the stairs to find his grandfather. "Grandfather, look at this," Aaron shouted. Waving the map, his grandfather adjusted his glasses and looked at the paper. His eyes widened slightly, but he did not seem surprised. "Ah, you found it. That map has been in our family for generations. It is said to show the path to the ruins of a king whose name vanished from history. Many have tried to find it, but none returned with proof." Aaron's excitement grew. "Do you mean the treasure is real?" His grandfather smiled softly. "Perhaps, but the true treasure may be something more than gold. It could be knowledge, wisdom, or secrets that the king left behind." Aaron nodded. He knew that this summer would be unlike any other. He ran to find Mira, his best friend. Mira loved adventure as much as Aaron did, and she had a sharp mind that could help him understand puzzles and mysteries. He found her in the garden, examining a rare flower she had discovered near the old well. "Mira, look at this," Aaron said, showing her the map. Mira's eyes sparkled with curiosity. She took the map and studied it. "This looks ancient. The markings show rivers and hills. But some symbols are strange. They are not from any language I know." Aaron grinned. "I think it leads to the lost kingdom of the Forgotten King. What do you say we find it?" Mira's face lit up with excitement. "I say we prepare, but we need to be careful. A jungle can be dangerous. Animals, quicksand, sudden storms, everything could be a challenge." Aaron nodded. "We will prepare. We will take supplies, ropes, and tools. We can do this together." The next few days were busy. Aaron and Mira gathered supplies, food, water, machetes, first aid kits, and camping gear. They studied the map and tried to understand the route. The closer they came to the jungle, the more mysterious it felt. Birds with bright feathers flew overhead, and the air smelled rich with earth and flowers. The map showed paths that were almost invisible, trails that disappeared under thick vines and roots. Aaron felt a thrill. Every step could lead them closer to a secret hidden for centuries. Finally, the day came to begin the journey. Aaron and Mira stood at the edge of the jungle, looking at the tall trees and thick green leaves. Sunlight barely reached the forest floor. Strange sounds echoed from deep within, calls of animals, rustling of leaves, and distant rushing water. The jungle seemed alive. Watching them, Aaron held the map tightly. "Are you ready?" he asked Mira. Mira smiled. "As ready as I will ever be. Let's find the Forgotten King's treasure." They stepped carefully into the jungle. The path was uneven, covered with roots and fallen branches. Every step required attention, and every sound made them alert. Birds flew suddenly from the trees, and monkeys watched them curiously from high branches. Aaron and Mira made notes on the map, marking landmarks and unusual symbols. Hours passed, and they discovered strange stone carvings partially hidden by moss. The carvings showed images of people, animals, and objects they could not identify. Aaron studied the markings closely. "These might be part of the king's story," he said. "Maybe they tell us who he was and what he valued." Mira nodded. "And they could be a warning. Ancient civilizations often left messages to protect their treasures. We need to be careful." As the day turned into evening, the jungle became denser. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the thick canopy. Aaron and Mira set up a small camp near a stream. They cooked a simple meal and discussed the map and carvings. The jungle around them was filled with sounds: frogs croaking, insects buzzing, and distant animal calls. It was both beautiful and a little frightening. That night, as Aaron lay in his sleeping bag, he thought about the forgotten king. Who was he? Why had his name vanished? What treasures had he hidden? The questions made it hard for him to sleep, but also filled him with excitement. Mira, lying nearby, seemed equally restless, flipping through a notebook where she sketched the unusual plants and carvings they had seen. Before dawn, the jungle was alive with sounds again. Aaron and Mira packed their supplies and continued deeper. Every step seemed to bring them closer to the unknown. Small streams, fallen logs, and hidden paths challenged them, but they worked together, helping each other climb or cross obstacles. At midday, they reached a clearing, and Aaron stopped in surprise. In front of them, half covered by vines and roots, were the first signs of the ruins. Large stone blocks stood broken, and carved walls hinted at the skill of builders long gone. The sunlight fell on a statue, worn by time but still impressive. The jungle had almost claimed it completely, yet it stood proud, as if guarding secrets. "This is it," Aaron whispered. "The forgotten king's ruins." Mira looked around carefully. "We must be cautious. The jungle may protect these ruins, but we must protect ourselves too." As they stepped closer, the wind seemed to whisper through the trees, carrying an air of mystery. Aaron felt a shiver of excitement. He knew this was just the beginning. The jungle held challenges, secrets, and perhaps treasures that had waited hundreds of years to be found. He could feel history coming alive beneath the leaves and roots. They set up camp near the ruins, planning to explore them carefully the next day. Aaron studied the map again. The markings suggested tunnels, hidden chambers, and perhaps even traps. He realized that finding the treasure would require not only courage, but also wisdom and patience. Mira, meanwhile, collected plant samples, always curious and careful. As the sun set, painting the sky with orange and pink, Aaron looked at the ruins and felt a sense of wonder. The story of the forgotten king was waiting for them to discover it. He knew the adventure would test them, challenge them, and perhaps change their lives forever. But Aaron felt ready. With Mira by his side, the lost kingdom was not lost for them. That night, the jungle seemed calm. Yet Aaron could hear the distant calls of creatures hidden in the shadows. He smiled, knowing that tomorrow they would step further into the mystery, chasing treasures buried under the jungle ruins of the forgotten king. The morning sun filtered through the thick canopy of the jungle, casting dappled light on the forest floor. Aaron and Mira woke early, the sound of chirping birds and rustling leaves greeting them. They packed their small camp and prepared to explore the ruins that had appeared yesterday. The ruins seemed quiet, but the jungle surrounding them pulsed with life. Every step forward felt like stepping back in time. Aaron adjusted the strap of his backpack and studied the ruins closely. "Look at these walls," he said. "The stones are enormous. Someone built this place with great skill. This king must have been powerful and respected." Mira nodded, crouching to examine the roots that had grown over part of a carved wall. "And the carvings are very detailed. The images may tell stories about the king, his people, and the treasures he left behind. We must pay attention to everything." They moved cautiously through the broken structures. Thick vines hung from stone pillars, and moss covered much of the surface. The air smelled damp and earthy, mixed with the faint scent of flowers. Aaron traced his fingers over a carving that showed people carrying objects. He tried to make sense of it. These could be scenes of daily life or maybe part of a ceremony. We might be able to learn about the king from them. As they advanced, the jungle began to test them. A fallen log blocked their path, and beneath it, a shallow pit filled with water made the ground slippery. Aaron found a strong branch and used it to balance as he crossed. Mira followed, stepping carefully. "This jungle does not give its secrets easily," she said with a smile. The deeper they went, the more alive the jungle became. Birds with bright feathers darted among the branches. Monkeys chattered in the distance, and colorful butterflies flitted around. Strange insects crawled over leaves, and small animals scurried underfoot. Aaron felt both excitement and caution. Every step could reveal something wonderful. But the jungle also held dangers. By midday, they reached a small stream. Water flowed over smooth stones, clear and cool. Mira knelt down to fill their bottles, while Aaron examined the surrounding ruins. "See this stone?" he asked, pointing to a block with carvings that looked like arrows. It could be a direction or a warning. Ancient builders often left messages to guide or protect people who entered their sites. Mira nodded, her eyes scanning the area. "We should follow the arrows carefully. They may lead to important chambers or paths." They followed the markings, stepping lightly on the moss-covered stones. Soon, the ruins opened into a larger area, a courtyard half hidden by trees. Broken statues and pillars lay scattered, some cracked and some leaning against each other. The sunlight made the moss shine bright green, and vines hung like curtains. From the walls, Aaron walked slowly, examining every detail. Suddenly, a noise startled them. A large bird with a brilliant red crest flew from a nearby tree, squawking loudly. Aaron and Mira laughed at being surprised. "It seems the jungle is alive with visitors," Mira said. "We are not the only ones exploring today." As they continued, they noticed more signs of careful planning in the ruins. Some stones had grooves as if designed to guide water or create traps. Aaron crouched near one. "The king wanted to protect something. Look at these grooves. They may have been part of a mechanism or a water trap." Mira helped him look around. "We should move carefully. Any step in the wrong place could be dangerous." But it also shows how smart the builders were. After hours of careful walking, they found a wall covered with carvings that told a story. Aaron traced the images with his fingers. These scenes show the king giving gifts to his people and leading them during ceremonies. He was not just a ruler, he cared for his kingdom. Mira studied the carvings and sketches the patterns in her notebook. "And notice these small symbols," she said. "They appear next to the king in each image. They may represent the locations of hidden chambers or treasures." Their exploration was interrupted by the distant sound of movement. Aaron held up his hand. "Listen, something is coming." From behind a large stone, a group of people appeared. Aaron recognized them immediately. They were other treasure hunters, armed and clearly searching for the same ruins. Aaron and Mira froze, hidden by a wall. The hunters moved carefully, stepping over fallen stones and examining the carvings. Mira whispered, "We need to stay hidden. They may be dangerous, and we cannot let them find the treasures first." Aaron nodded. They crouched behind the stone and waited. The hunters moved past the courtyard without noticing Aaron and Mira. Once the danger seemed gone, Aaron whispered, "We should continue, but we must be careful. Someone else is here, and we don't know what they will do." Mira agreed, and they proceeded slowly, using their knowledge of the ruins to avoid being seen. They came to a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. Aaron held a small lantern. "This may be an underground chamber," he said. The carvings hinted at tunnels below. "This could be where the real treasure is hidden." Mira took a deep breath. "The air smells different here. It is cool and damp. The king may have used these tunnels to protect his treasures and knowledge." They descended carefully, the lantern casting long shadows on the stone walls. The staircase led to a chamber, with a low ceiling and walls covered in murals. The images were worn, but still showed the king and his people. Aaron felt a thrill. "We are the first to see this in centuries," he said. Mira examined the floor. "Look at the patterns here. Some stones are raised differently. They may be part of a puzzle or a trap." Aaron studied the symbols and traced them with his fingers. The king wanted to protect his treasures with puzzles. That means we must think carefully, not rush. Hours passed as they explored the chamber. They found small alcoves with artifacts, pottery, jewelry, and objects of unknown purpose. Aaron carefully documented everything, while Mira sketched the rare plants growing near damp corners. The jungle outside seemed distant, as if time itself had stopped inside the ruins. Finally, as the sun began to set, they decided to rest in a small corner of the chamber. Aaron looked at Mira. "Tomorrow, we will continue deeper. The carvings and artifacts suggest that the main treasure is still ahead, but we must stay cautious." Someone else may be following us, and the jungle will not make it easy. Mira nodded, her eyes shining with excitement. This is just the beginning. The jungle has tested us, but it has also shown us its wonders. I cannot wait to see what comes next. As they lay down to rest, the sounds of the jungle reached them even in the underground chamber. Insects buzzed softly, and the distant call of a bird echoed through the tunnels. Aaron felt a mix of fear and excitement. The ruins of the forgotten king were alive with history, and every step they took brought them closer to secrets that had waited for hundreds of years. The night passed quietly, though Aaron and Mira remained alert. They knew the jungle would continue to test them. Tomorrow, they would face new challenges, discover more of the king's story, and perhaps uncover the first clues of the treasure hidden beneath the roots and stones of the forgotten ruins. The jungle was not just a place of trees and animals, it was a keeper of secrets. And Aaron and Mira had just begun their adventure into the heart of history. The next morning, Aaron woke to the faint light filtering through cracks in the stone walls of the chamber. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth. Mira was already awake, examining the carvings on the walls with a small notebook and pencil in hand. She looked up and smiled. I think these murals tell a story, she said. If we can read them carefully, we might learn how to reach the treasure. Aaron nodded. He studied a panel that showed the king standing in front of a group of people. Some were holding objects, others were carrying containers. It looks like the king was giving gifts or teaching his people something, he said. Maybe these images show clues about how he protected his treasures. Mira traced her fingers over the symbols beside the king. These symbols repeat in certain patterns. They might be directions or warnings. If we understand the pattern, it could guide us through the ruins safely. They moved slowly through the chamber, careful to avoid stepping on stones that seemed loose or uneven. Aaron noticed that some tiles were raised slightly higher than others, creating a subtle path through the floor. I think the king used the floor as part of a puzzle, he said. We must step carefully and follow the right sequence, or we could trigger a trap. Mira examined the stones. The pattern seems to match the carvings on the wall. Look here, she said, pointing to a mural showing people walking in a line, stepping carefully over objects. We should follow the same steps with careful coordination. Aaron and Mira stepped from stone to stone, following the pattern. The floor felt stable beneath their feet, and soon they reached the other side of the chamber. A small archway led into a narrower corridor, darker and cooler than the room they had left. Aaron held the lantern high. Shadows danced on the walls, making the carvings seem alive. This corridor may lead to the heart of the ruins, he said. We need to watch for more symbols and traps. Mira nodded and stepped forward, scanning the walls for hidden markings. The corridor twisted and turned, and at one point, they had to squeeze through a low arch covered in thick moss. The air smelled earthy and slightly sweet, and the faint sound of water dripping echoed around them. Suddenly, Aaron stopped. Look at this, he whispered. A series of small holes were lined along the walls. They could have been part of a trap or a mechanism to protect the treasures. Mira studied them carefully. Yes, but they are too small for people to pass through. Maybe they were part of something that moved or dropped objects. If someone stepped in the wrong place, we should move slowly. As they continued, they came to a chamber larger than the last. Its ceiling was higher, and the walls were covered with more carvings. This time, the images showed the king with animals and what looked like gifts buried in the ground. Aaron's eyes widened. This must be a clue, he said. The treasures are probably hidden below the floor or behind a secret wall. Mira noticed small symbols near the base of the walls. These could indicate hidden doors or compartments, she said. She tapped one of the stones lightly, and it moved slightly. I think the king built secret panels. Some may open when pressed in a certain way. Aaron joined her and studied the pattern of the stones. We need to figure out the correct order. If we press the wrong one, it could be dangerous. The king was clever. He wanted only those who understood his wisdom to reach the treasure. Together, they began pressing stones in sequences suggested by the carvings. The process required patience and careful observation. Aaron noticed that certain stones were smoother than others, and Mira realized these matched images of the king in the murals. They pressed the stones corresponding to the king's position, one by one. A low rumble echoed through the chamber, and a section of the wall slowly slid open. Behind it, a narrow passage led further into darkness. Aaron and Mira exchanged excited glances. "We found a hidden path," Aaron said quietly. "This could lead to the main treasure chamber." They stepped carefully into the passage. The air was cooler here, and the walls were covered in moss and small carvings. The passage twisted and turned, forcing them to crouch and bend as they moved forward. Occasionally, small stones fell from the ceiling, but neither was hurt. They felt a growing sense of anticipation, knowing they were closer to the king's secrets. After a long walk, they reached another chamber. This one was smaller, but filled with objects that had been placed with great care. Clay pots, small chests, and carved statues filled the room. Aaron's eyes shone with excitement. These objects are probably part of the treasure collection, but they are not just gold or jewels. They may be valuable for knowledge or history. Mira picked up a small scroll carefully tied with a red ribbon. "Look at this," she said. "The writing is old, but it seems to be instructions or records. From the king. This is incredible." We are discovering history firsthand. As they explored, Aaron noticed faint footprints in the dust. "Someone else has been here recently," he said. Lowering his voice, "The other treasure hunters may have followed us into the ruins." Mira's eyes widened. "We need to be careful. They could be dangerous. But we cannot stop now. We are so close to finding the king's main treasures." They continued, following the murals and hidden symbols, and discovered more alcoves filled with objects, jewelry, pottery, and small sculptures. Each item told a story about the king and his people. Aaron carefully documented everything in his notebook, while Mira made sketches of rare carvings and plants that had grown inside the ruins. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed through the chamber. They froze. It was a low, scraping noise, as if someone or something was moving carefully through the ruins. Aaron whispered, "Stay calm. It could be the other hunters. We need to hide and watch." They crouched behind a large stone chest, barely breathing. Through the gap, they saw the shadow of a person moving slowly, examining the carvings and artifacts. Aaron and Mira held still, waiting for the figure to pass. The hunter moved slowly, unaware of their presence. After a tense few minutes, the shadow disappeared into another corridor. Mira exhaled quietly. "That was close. We must be more careful. But at least we know the treasures are still safe for now." Aaron nodded. "Yes, and we have learned so much about the king already. His wisdom, his care for his people, and his clever protections. We are starting to understand the true value of the treasures. Beyond gold or jewels." As evening approached, they decided to rest in a safe corner of the chamber. Aaron lit a small lantern, casting warm light over the carvings and artifacts. Mira carefully wrapped the scrolls they had found and placed them in her bag. The jungle outside was quiet now, though the distant sound of birds and insects could still be heard through the ruins. Aaron looked at Mira and smiled. "Tomorrow, we will go deeper. The king's main treasure may be hidden further down, and we will need all our courage and wisdom to reach it." Mira nodded. "I cannot wait. The jungle has tested us, but it has also shown us wonders. The forgotten king's secrets are finally starting to reveal themselves." That night, as they rested among the ancient stones, Aaron and Mira felt a sense of wonder and excitement. The jungle held challenges, but it also held stories, treasures, and history waiting to be discovered. The forgotten king's ruins were alive, and every step they took brought them closer to secrets that had waited hundreds of years to be found. The adventure was only beginning, and the jungle promised new challenges and discoveries with each step into the past. The morning light barely reached the chamber where Aaron and Mira had spent the night. The ruins were silent except for the faint drip of water from the walls. Aaron stretched and yawned. "Today we go deeper," he said. "I think the main treasure lies further inside, probably in an underground labyrinth." The murals hinted at tunnels, and I want to see where they lead." Mira nodded, carefully checking their supplies. "We need to stay alert." The king protected his treasures with clever mechanisms and traps. Every step must be careful, and we must watch for the other hunters. They may be following us. They left the chamber and found a narrow passage that descended into darkness. Aaron held a lantern high, and Mira followed closely, noting the carvings on the walls. The tunnel twisted and turned, sometimes opening into small alcoves filled with artifacts, sometimes narrowing to barely allow them to pass. The air was damp, cool, and smelled of earth and moss as they walked. Aaron noticed marks on the stone floor. "Look at this," he said. "These are footprints, but they are old, maybe hundreds of years. The king must have walked here often, or perhaps his people maintained the tunnels." Mira studied the walls. "The carvings are different here. They show animals and strange symbols. I think they are clues for navigating the labyrinth. If we follow them carefully, we might avoid traps and dead ends." They moved cautiously, stepping over uneven stones and avoiding sections of the floor that looked weak. Occasionally, they paused to examine inscriptions or small reliefs. Aaron traced the carvings with his fingers. The king wanted people to think, not just run in. The puzzles are part of the test. Only someone clever and patient can reach the treasure. After some time, they reached a junction where 3 tunnels met. Each passage looked equally dark and mysterious. Aaron examined the markings on the walls. These symbols suggest the left tunnel leads to water, the right to air, and the middle shows a crown. I think the middle one is the way forward. It probably leads closer to the king's treasure. Mira nodded. "Let's go carefully. The other passages may be traps or dead ends. We must follow the symbols exactly." They stepped into the middle tunnel. The walls were covered in moss, and small cracks let drops of water fall gently onto the stones. The tunnel twisted sharply, forcing them to crouch and bend as they moved forward. Occasionally, Aaron used a small stick to test the floor ahead, making sure it was safe. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Its ceiling was high, and the air felt cooler. The walls were carved with intricate murals, showing the king in the center of his people, giving instructions and gifts. Some carvings seemed to float above the floor, creating a sense of depth. Aaron marveled at the detail. The king wanted this place to be beautiful and safe. Every carving has meaning. Mira knelt and studied a section of the floor. Some stones are slightly raised and different in color. These may be part of another puzzle. If we step on the wrong stones, it could trigger something. Aaron examined the pattern carefully. It matches the carvings on the wall. The people and the mural are stepping in a certain order. We need to follow that sequence exactly. They began to move slowly, following the sequence. Step by step, they crossed the chamber. Careful not to rush. The floor was uneven, and small stones shifted under their weight. When they reached the other side, a low rumble echoed through the chamber. But nothing dangerous happened. Aaron and Mira exchanged relieved smiles. At the far end, a stone door blocked the passage forward. It was covered with carvings of animals, stars, and strange symbols. Mira ran her fingers over the markings. "This is a puzzle door. It probably opens only when the right symbols are pressed in the correct order." Aaron studied the carvings. "I think the sequence is shown in the murals we just crossed." The king included clues everywhere. "We need to match the animals and symbols with the steps we took on the floor." They began pressing the symbols one by one. Following the pattern carefully, each press caused a low click, and the door remained closed. Aaron and Mira concentrated, counting carefully, making sure they did not make a mistake. Finally, after pressing the last symbol, the door slowly creaked open, revealing a passage lit by faint sunlight coming from above. Aaron whispered, "We did it. The king's labyrinth is meant to test patience and intelligence. We passed the test." Mira smiled. "And the sunlight means we are getting closer to the outer chambers. Maybe the treasures are near." The passage led them into another chamber, larger than any they had seen. Columns of stone rose to the ceiling, and intricate carvings covered every surface. In the center, a raised platform held small chests, clay pots, and carefully wrapped bundles. Aaron and Mira approached slowly, marveling at the treasures. Mira carefully picked up a small chest and opened it. Inside were golden ornaments and jewelry, sparkling even in the dim light. Aaron examined a bundle of scrolls. These are records from the king. They may contain knowledge about his people, laws, and history. As they explored the chamber, Aaron noticed a section of the floor that looked slightly different. Mira, this may be a hidden trapdoor or secret passage. The king must have hidden something valuable here. Mira nodded. Let's investigate carefully. The treasures here may only be part of what the king left behind. They examined the floor, pressing gently on stones that seemed movable. After several careful attempts, a section shifted, revealing a small staircase descending further. Aaron's eyes shone with excitement. This is incredible. The king's main treasure may be below. Mira took a deep breath. We must go down. Slowly, the labyrinth may have more puzzles or traps. They descended, lanterns casting long shadows on the walls. The air grew cooler and damper. Small alcoves along the walls held pottery, tools, and more carvings. Aaron traced the images. The king wanted people to learn from these objects. He valued knowledge and skill as much as wealth. After a long walk, they reached another chamber. It was filled with artifacts, some golden, some simple, and all carefully arranged. The murals showed the king teaching, sharing wisdom, and hiding treasures. Aaron and Mira realized that the king's true treasure was not only gold or jewels, but also the knowledge he preserved for future generations. Suddenly, they heard distant sounds echoing through the labyrinth. Someone else was in the ruins. Aaron whispered, the other hunters may have found a way in. We need to stay alert and protect what we have discovered. Mira nodded. We must continue, but carefully. The king designed these chambers to test intruders. If we stay smart, we can keep his treasures safe. They spent the rest of the day exploring the chamber and documenting everything they found. The artifacts and murals revealed more about the forgotten king, his people, and his clever ways of hiding treasures. Aaron felt a growing sense of respect for the king's wisdom. As evening approached, they found a safe corner of the chamber. To rest, Aaron lit a small lantern, and Mira carefully wrapped scrolls and objects for protection. Outside, the jungle was quiet, and the distant sound of animals could barely be heard through the stone walls. Aaron looked at Mira. Tomorrow, we go even deeper. The king's labyrinth is designed to challenge everyone who enters. But we are ready. We have learned from the murals, the floor puzzles, and the hidden symbols. The main treasure is close, and we will discover it together. Mira smiled. The jungle has tested us, and the labyrinth has tested our patience. But I am excited. The forgotten king's secrets are finally beginning to reveal themselves. That night, as they rested among the ancient stones, Aaron and Mira felt both excitement and respect for the king who had designed such clever protections. The labyrinth was more than a series of puzzles. It was a lesson in wisdom, patience, and courage. Every step they took brought them closer to the hidden treasures. Buried under the jungle ruins of the forgotten king, the adventure continued, promising more discoveries, challenges, and history waiting to be uncovered. The morning light barely reached the deep chamber where Aaron and Mira had rested. The walls were covered with murals and carvings, each telling stories of the king and his people. Aaron carefully packed their notes and scrolls while Mira checked the small artifacts they had collected. Today, they were determined to reach the king's main treasure chamber. Aaron studied the carvings along the walls. I think the final chamber is protected by a riddle, he said. The king wanted only those with patience and wisdom to find it, if we pay attention. The murals may give us clues. Mira nodded. We should move slowly and observe everything. The riddle might not be a puzzle of stones or levers. It could be a question or a pattern hidden in the carvings. They stepped carefully into the narrow passage that led deeper into the labyrinth. The air was cooler here, damp with the scent of earth and moss. Small droplets of water fell from the ceiling, and the sound echoed through the corridor. The walls were carved with images of animals, people, and objects. Aaron traced the carvings with his fingers, trying to understand the patterns. After walking for a while, they came to a heavy stone door. Its surface was covered with intricate carvings, showing the king in the center surrounded by symbols and strange figures. In the middle of the door was a carved inscription. Aaron wiped the dust away and read aloud, "To enter the chamber of truth, answer what is valued most, the wealth that glitters or the wisdom that guides." Mira's eyes widened. This is the riddle. The king wants us to choose wisely. It is not just about gold or jewels. He valued knowledge and guidance more than wealth. Aaron nodded. Then the answer must be wisdom. That is what the carvings suggest. The murals show the king teaching, helping his people, and protecting his kingdom. He cared more for knowledge than for riches. They pressed the central symbol on the door, the one that represented the king holding a scroll. A low rumble echoed through the corridor. The stone door slowly began to move, sliding open to reveal a chamber bathed in soft golden light. Aaron and Mira stepped inside cautiously. The chamber was magnificent. Columns of stone rose to a high ceiling, and every surface was decorated with carvings and murals. In the center, a raised platform held treasures of gold, jewelry, and small chests. But more impressive were the scrolls, manuscripts, and objects that seemed to contain knowledge and history. Aaron's eyes shone with excitement. This is incredible. The king's treasure is not just gold. It is knowledge, history, and wisdom. Mira carefully approached the platform. Look at these scrolls. They contain records of the kingdom, lessons from the king, and perhaps inventions or ideas lost to time. This is more valuable than any jewels. As they explored the chamber, a sudden sound echoed from the corridor outside. Aaron and Mira froze. Someone else was in the ruins. Aaron whispered, "The other treasure hunters have found a way in. We must be careful. They may want the treasure for themselves." Mira looked at him, her eyes sharp. "We cannot let them take the scrolls or disturb the chamber. But we also must be smart. The king would want us to protect the knowledge, not fight recklessly." They moved quickly but quietly, gathering the scrolls and manuscripts. Aaron placed them carefully in his backpack, and Mira wrapped smaller items in cloth to protect them. The golden treasure was left untouched for now. Their priority was preserving the knowledge of the king. Through a narrow slit in the wall, they saw shadows moving. The hunters were entering the chamber, eyes wide with surprise and greed. Aaron whispered, "We need a plan. If we distract them, we can escape without confrontation." Mira noticed a section of the floor near the entrance with stones that looked loose. "We can use the floor to create a distraction. If we shift some stones, it may block the entrance temporarily." Aaron nodded. Together, they moved carefully, lifting and shifting the stones. A small rumble echoed, and a section of the floor shifted, creating a partial barrier. The hunters stumbled slightly and stopped, surprised by the movement. Aaron and Mira took the moment to slip past another side passage, leading them deeper into the ruins. The side passage was narrow and dimly lit. Aaron held the lantern high, while Mira clutched the scrolls tightly. The air was cool and smelled of moss and stone. They could hear the hunters' frustrated voices behind them, but the barrier slowed them down. Aaron whispered, "The king's labyrinth protects those who respect it. Clever thinking and care will allow us to succeed." As they moved further, they discovered another small chamber. It was empty except for a stone pedestal and carvings on the walls showing the king and his people. Aaron examined the pedestal. The king used these chambers to test wisdom, courage, and patience. Every step is meaning. Mira traced the carvings, and he left guidance for those who are careful. "The scrolls are safe with us. That is what matters most." They rested briefly, reviewing the scrolls and discussing their next steps. Aaron realized the king had designed the labyrinth not only to protect treasures but also to teach. This is why the king's name lasted so long in history, even if the kingdom was forgotten. His wisdom was preserved here. Mira nodded, and now we are part of that story. We have learned from the king, and we will share it with others. The jungle and the labyrinth are full of lessons if we respect them. As evening approached, they decided to move to a safer section of the chamber. Aaron lit a small lantern and arranged the scrolls carefully. Mira sketched some of the carvings in her notebook. The golden treasures sparkled in the dim light, but their focus remained on the knowledge they had found. Aaron looked at Mira. Tomorrow, we will plan how to return with the scrolls safely. The hunters may still be in the ruins. And we must be clever. The king's labyrinth is challenging, but it rewards patience and wisdom. Mira smiled. We have succeeded so far. The riddle of the king was not about greed or force. It was about understanding, and we have proven that the treasure is more than gold. It is history and wisdom preserved for those who are ready. That night, as they rested among the ancient stones, Aaron and Mira felt a deep sense of accomplishment. They had solved the riddle, discovered the treasure chamber, and learned the king's wisdom. The jungle outside seemed calm, almost respectful of the king's legacy. They knew the adventure was not over. They still had to navigate the ruins safely and protect the treasures from the hunters. But Aaron and Mira felt confident. They had used their intelligence, courage, and patience to reach the heart of the labyrinth, uncovering the true treasures of the forgotten king. The chamber glowed softly in the lantern light, filled with scrolls, artifacts, and treasures that had waited centuries to be discovered. Aaron and Mira had not only found the riches, but had also become part of the story, carrying forward the legacy of wisdom and knowledge preserved under the jungle ruins of the forgotten king. The chamber was quiet except for the soft dripping of water from the stone ceiling. Aaron and Mira sat on the edge of the raised platform, surrounded by the treasures of the forgotten king, scrolls, manuscripts, and small artifacts lay carefully. Around them, the golden ornaments and chests sparkled faintly in the lantern light. But both knew that the true value was not in wealth alone. Aaron picked up a scroll, unrolling it carefully. The writing was intricate, yet clear. It described the king's laws, his care for the people, and his efforts to teach wisdom across generations. Aaron read aloud. The king believed knowledge is more valuable than gold. He wrote that wealth fades, but wisdom lasts forever. Mira listened intently. It is incredible. The scrolls contain lessons that people today could still learn from: medicine, agriculture, and even ways to live in harmony with nature. The king left more than riches. He left understanding. A sudden noise echoed through the quarter outside. Aaron froze. Mira grabbed his arm. The hunters are back, she whispered. We need to protect the scrolls and decide quickly. Aaron nodded. He looked around the chamber. The golden treasure lay within reach, tempting and bright. The hunters could easily take it if they entered. But the scrolls' knowledge the king had preserved were their true prize. Aaron whispered. We have a choice. We can take gold or protect the wisdom. The king left this for those who value learning over greed. Mira's eyes shone with determination. Then we take the scrolls. The gold can stay. We must respect the king's intentions. Carefully, they packed the scrolls and manuscripts into sturdy bags. Mira secured smaller artifacts, and Aaron double-checked the bundles. The golden chests and jewelry remained untouched. Aaron felt a strange satisfaction. It was not the glitter of gold that excited him, but the thought of the knowledge preserved. For the future, outside, the footsteps of the hunters grew louder. Aaron and Mira had to move quickly but quietly. Aaron pointed to a small side passage they had noticed the day before. This way. It leads to a hidden exit used by the kings. Guards, if we are careful, we can escape without confrontation. They slipped through the passage, stepping lightly over uneven stones. The narrow corridor twisted and turned, forcing them to bend and crouch. The air smelled damp and earthy, and the sound of water echoed softly. Aaron held the lantern high, guiding the way. As they moved deeper into the passage, Mira glanced at the scrolls. We must keep them safe. Any damage could destroy centuries of history. Aaron nodded. I will carry the heavier bundles. You watch the path ahead. We must move carefully, but fast enough to stay ahead of the hunters. The jungle outside. The ruins was dense and dark, but it was alive. The sounds of birds, insects, and distant animals filled the air. Aaron and Mira emerged from the hidden exit and paused for a moment. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, illuminating their path. They had left the labyrinth behind, but the jungle itself still held challenges. They followed the overgrown trail, using the map they had found in Aaron's grandfather's attic. Vines tangled around branches, and roots stripped their feet. But they moved steadily forward, Aaron used a stick to test the ground, ensuring it was safe, while Mira scanned the area for signs of the hunters. Hours passed as they navigated the dense jungle. They crossed a small stream using fallen logs and climbed over rocks that blocked their path. Occasionally, they paused to rest and drink water, their eyes always alert. The jungle tested their patience and endurance, but they were determined to keep the king's treasures safe. At one point, they noticed footprints in the mud. Aaron crouched to examine them. The hunters are following, but we have a head start. They will not reach the scrolls before we are far enough. Mira nodded. Good. We must stay on this path and avoid making noise. The king's labyrinth prepared us for challenges like this. We can handle the jungle too. As evening approached, they found a small clearing suitable for resting. Aaron set up a simple camp while Mira carefully wrapped the scrolls and manuscripts to protect them from dampness. They ate a light meal of dried fruits and bread, and for a moment, the tension eased. Aaron looked at Mira. We did it. We solved the riddles, explored the labyrinth, and found the king's treasure. Not the gold, but the wisdom he left behind. That is more valuable than anything else. Mira smiled, and we protected it. The hunters may still try to follow, but the knowledge is safe with us. The king would be proud. As night fell, they lay under the canopy of the jungle, listening to the sounds of insects and distant animals. The scrolls and manuscripts lay close to them, secured and safe. Aaron felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The adventure had tested their courage, patience, and intelligence. They had not only discovered treasure, but had also learned lessons about respect, wisdom, and history. The next morning, they continued their journey, following the map back toward the edge of the jungle. The path was challenging, but they moved steadily, taking care not to damage the precious scrolls. Birds sang above them, and sunlight filtered through the trees, guiding their way. By midday, they reached a small river. Aaron tested the current and found a safe crossing. Mira followed, carrying the scrolls with care. On the far side, they paused to rest and look back at the dense jungle they had navigated. It seemed almost alive, watching them leave, keeping the king's secrets protected for centuries. Aaron smiled. We made it this far. Soon, we will return to the village, and the world will know the forgotten king's treasures in a way no one else could preserve. We chose wisdom over gold, and that is the true reward. Mira nodded. The jungle, the ruins, and the king have taught us much. We have learned patience, respect, and the value of knowledge. This is more than an adventure. It is a lesson for life. As they walked the final stretch toward the edge of the jungle, Aaron and Mira felt proud and grateful. They had faced challenges, solved riddles, and protected treasures that had been hidden for hundreds of years. The knowledge of the forgotten king was now safe, ready to be shared with those who would appreciate it. Finally, as they emerged from the jungle into the sunlight, they paused and looked back at the dense trees and ruins. The adventure was complete, but the story of the forgotten king and his treasures would live on through the scrolls and manuscripts they had protected. Aaron and Mira had not only discovered history, they had preserved it. The journey had tested them, inspired them, and changed them. They had learned that true treasure is not always gold, but wisdom, courage, and respect for the past. With the scrolls safe in their packs, they set off toward their village, ready to share the king's legacy with the world. Aaron and Mira finally reached the edge of the jungle. The thick green canopy gave way to open fields and a clear sky. The journey back had been long and exhausting, but the sight of familiar land filled them with relief. The scrolls and manuscripts were safe, carefully packed in their bags, and every step forward reminded them of the wisdom they had discovered deep within the ruins. As they approached their village, word began to spread. Villagers came out to meet them, curious about their expedition. Children ran ahead, pointing toward the adventurers and shouting their names. Some elders raised their eyebrows, remembering old tales about the forgotten king. Aaron and Mira smiled and greeted everyone, careful to keep the scrolls protected. Inside the village, they were invited to the Hall of Scholars. The room was filled with old books, artifacts, and people eager to learn. Aaron carefully unrolled the scrolls on the long wooden table. The room fell silent as the writings of the forgotten king were revealed. Everyone leaned closer. Reading the words that had been hidden for centuries, an elder scholar spoke first. These scrolls are extraordinary. They tell us about the king, his wisdom, and his care for the people. This knowledge was lost for generations, and now it has returned. Aaron nodded. We discovered the king's treasures, but not the gold. The real treasure is here in the wisdom and knowledge he left for his people, Mira added. The scrolls describe sustainable farming, ways to protect the jungle, and methods to help the sick. The king wanted his people to thrive, to live in balance with nature. This is the true gift he left behind. The scholars carefully documented every scroll and manuscript. Aaron and Mira helped organize them, explaining the riddles and passages they had solved in the ruins. Every word sparked curiosity and excitement. People from nearby villages came to see the scrolls and learn about the forgotten king. Aaron realized that history was not only in books, but in the stories preserved through time. Meanwhile, news of the expedition reached the rival hunters who had tried to follow them in the jungle. They arrived in the village, hoping to find gold. Aaron and Mira welcomed them politely. The treasures are not gold, Aaron said calmly. We only took the scrolls because the king wanted his wisdom to be protected. Perhaps now you will understand that knowledge is more valuable than wealth. The hunters looked surprised. They had expected chests of gold and jewels. Instead, they found lessons and stories. Slowly, they nodded and accepted the choice. They left quietly, leaving Aaron and Mira to continue their work. The villagers understood that the jungle's secrets were safe, and that greed could not claim what had been preserved with care and respect. Aaron and Mira spent the next weeks sharing the knowledge of the forgotten king. Farmers learned new techniques to grow crops without harming the soil. Healers studied the king's methods to help the sick using natural remedies. Children were taught about courage, patience, and wisdom. The king's legacy slowly returned to life, inspiring every corner of the village. The jungle itself seemed to breathe easier, with no one exploiting the ruins or the land. Nature began to flourish. Mira often returned to document the rare plants, noticing that many had survived because they had been hidden and protected for so long. Aaron wrote a book about their journey, combining adventure with lessons from history. Together, they ensured that the story of the forgotten king would not vanish again. One morning, Aaron and Mira visited the edge of the jungle, looking back at the path they had taken. The ruins were hidden by thick vines and trees, mysterious. As ever, Aaron smiled. The king's treasure is safe, and his wisdom is being used. The jungle remains a secret for those who respect it. Mira nodded, her eyes reflecting the sunlight filtering through the leaves. We learned much on this journey: courage, patience, respect for history, and the value of knowledge. These lessons are the greatest treasure we can share with others. The villagers had begun celebrating the forgotten king's return in stories, songs, and festivals. Children dressed as explorers, scholars shared the scrolls in public spaces, and everyone respected the jungle as a living part of their history. Aaron felt proud of their work. They had not only discovered the king's treasures, but had also restored hope and knowledge to the people. As days passed, Aaron and Mira continued their studies. They revisited the scrolls, translated parts, and documented plants and artifacts. Scholars from distant regions came to learn. The village became a center of knowledge, attracting people who valued wisdom over wealth. Aaron and Mira's adventure had transformed their community, showing that history, once preserved, could inspire generations. One evening, Aaron and Mira sat together on a small hill overlooking the village. The sun set in warm colors, casting long shadows over the fields and houses. Children played in the distance, and the village was alive with laughter and curiosity. Aaron spoke softly. We have completed our journey. The forgotten king's story is alive again, and we have learned that the greatest treasure is what we can share with others. Mira smiled and held one of the smaller manuscripts. Yes, the gold would have been forgotten, but knowledge will last forever. The king trusted us to protect it, and we have. Now, it belongs to everyone who seeks to learn. As night fell, the village glowed with lanterns. music, and celebration, Aaron and Mira looked up at the stars, feeling connected to the past, present, and future. They had faced dangers, solved riddles, navigated the jungle, and protected treasures. Most importantly, they had understood the true meaning of value. In the years that followed, Aaron and Mira's names were remembered alongside the forgotten king. Stories of their courage and wisdom were told to children. Scholars continued to study the scrolls, discovering new knowledge with every generation. The jungle remained protected, its secrets safe, and the legacy of the king became a symbol of learning and respect. The journey that had begun with curiosity had transformed into a lifelong mission. Aaron and Mira had proven that bravery, intelligence, and respect could overcome greed and danger. They had discovered treasure, but more importantly, they had preserved the heart of a forgotten kingdom, and so the village thrived, the jungle stayed alive, and the forgotten king's treasures wisdom, courage, and knowledge remained safe for everyone who valued history and learning. Aaron and Mira had fulfilled their promise, and the story ended with hope, inspiration, and the quiet joy of a mission accomplished.